Joe Biden is at it once more, ladies and gentlemen. This time, he called you names. Well, he called some of you names. We'll just say that, anyways. Hey, welcome back to the Matt Hatter Show. If you are new to the channel, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. While you're at it, turn on those notifications and give us a like, a share, maybe a thumbs up, or tell your friends, tell your family, tell your dog about the channel. We're a new channel, and if you can help us out, we really would appreciate it. It's hard to get a channel started right now in YouTube land, and especially if you are coming into a market that's relatively highly saturated already. So I would really appreciate any help that you can give us, at least to kind of get things going. You can always change your mind later on. That's perfectly fine. You can do that still, at least for a while still, in this country. So, without further ado, what happened? So it appears that Joe Biden was doing a speech, and this was in response to a event that happened recently. It was the Madison Square Garden event that took place for Trump up in New York. He had a whole lot of speakers lined up. There was Dr. Phil, Hulk Hogan, Melania spoke. I mean, just a whole lot of people just basically came out to celebrate the closing days of the election, which is a good reason to celebrate. Definitely, the sooner we can get this thing over with, the better. But they were coming out to celebrate, if you will, with Trump. Hopefully, what will end up being a good victory for him, which we'll have to wait and see. Um, but before Trump spoke, at some point earlier in the night, they had a comedian that came out, and he delivered some colorful jokes, and some of which were fell a little bit flat. And this particular one was a joke that he made. He said, "Hey, I don't know if you know, but there's like this pile of garbage out there in the ocean right now. I think it's called the island of Puerto Rico." And really, as soon as he delivered it, there was a mix of laughs and moans. I mean, I think probably about maybe quarter of the crowd most likely were laughing either out of respect for the comedian, or just maybe because they really did find it funny. I don't know. But you could tell that there were a lot of moans, and like that really is not, that doesn't hit just right. Even at a Republican event, which of course they're already accusing Republicans of being Nazis and racist and everything else. Trying to turn the Madison Square Garden event into a reenactment of an event from like the late 30s, which is ludicrous. As though there have not been any events at Madison Square Gardens in the last 80 plus years. Oh wait, there were. In fact, I believe it was John F. Kennedy had an event there, and so did Jimmy Carter, and so did Ronald Reagan. So it's kind of odd that they would just latch onto it today and say, hey, they're reenacting this event from then, when you've actually had three presidents since then who have actually had events and rallies there, and no one batted an eyelash, to it. No one for a moment. I mean, two of them were Democrats, for crying out loud. But anyways, this guy basically came out, did this, this little comedy bit. Some people found it maybe mildly amusing, and there were a lot of people who kind of like groaned, like, And he's like, oh, okay. I says, I don't normally follow the national anthem or something like that. So I get it. I mean, he's used to potentially talking to some one audience, and here he is. He goes out before a more politically charged audience, and things are different. He's playing to a different audience, and it didn't go. The joke did not go over very well, actually. And of course, you wouldn't know that by listening to the media. The media are all like, "Oh, see, this just proves, this validates that these Trump voters are nothing but a bunch of racists, and they're just a bunch of Nazi sympathizers," which is ludicrous considering something like 80% of Orthodox Jews actually back Trump for office. But I digress. Um, so, anyways, in response to that, Joe Biden decided that it was necessary for him to address it, because everyone was waiting on the edge of their seat for what Joe Biden was going to say about this. I mean, I for one was anxious. I was waiting with bated breath for the moment that Joe Biden would speak, so I could know exactly how I needed to feel about this. So he didn't disappoint. I'll play the clip and you can tell us what you think. So here is the clip, and the gaffmaster himself is about to speak.
The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters.
So what do you think, folks? Was he calling Trump supporters garbage?
The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters.
So evidently there were a number of people who came to his aid following this, essentially saying that, hey, he really was not calling Trump supporters garbage. That he was just he was talking about the comedian. Well, he didn't say the comedian was garbage. He didn't say the joke was garbage, and he could have said those things. This is the important thing to remember: not only what was said, but also what could have been said that wasn't. So he did not say that the comedian's joke was garbage. He did not say that the event itself was garbage. No, he said that Trump supporters are garbage. So, if you are a Trump supporter, congratulations. Just like myself, you are in the eyes of Joe Biden, probably the entire Biden administration, or at least some of it too, garbage. And that's not a surprise. It does not bother me that Joe Biden called me garbage. I mean, I've been called worse in my life, and I will be called worse, and you probably have been and will be called worse too at something other than garbage. But again, this is just one more example, though, of how the left tends to turn an issue that is relatively insignificant into something big, but then ends up putting their own foot in their own mouth when given the opportunity. And this is not the first time that this has happened with Democrats during an election year. So you might remember just a few years prior to the 2020 election, there was a candidate by the name of Hillary Clinton. And let's hear what she had to say. So here she is speaking before her supporters, and she's talking to, as I think it's a campaign rally event. And here, you can just listen for yourself, and you tell me what you think.
You could put half of Trump supporters into what I call the basket of deplorables. You could put half of Trump supporters into what I call the basket of deplorables.
So does any of this sound kind of familiar to you? Where we have a election season where a candidate or a candidate surrogate comes up and basically calls those who are supporting the opposition names. Now, this is not, again, this is not the first time. It's not the second time. So it was Obama who actually came out and he called the supporters at that time of Mitt Romney, people like bitter clingers, holding on to their guns and religion. So now these things sometimes backfire and sometimes they don't. I mean, it really just depends. Now, since Joe Biden said this, his apologists have come forward offering explanations for why or exactly what he was meaning. He didn't mean that you're garbage. Even though he said you're garbage, he didn't actually mean it. What he meant was that the joke was garbage, that the jokester, the comedian, was garbage, or all sorts of just crazy explanations that they're coming up with, whenever the most obvious explanation is the one before us, and that is that he really was calling Trump supporters garbage. Now, I don't know internally how he honestly feels about Trump supporters on an individual level, but I do think that this does characterize how he feels about Trump supporters, at least on a more of a macro level. So just holistically, he probably does consider them to be garbage. Why? Well, I mean, they have kind of opposed his policies for the last 4 years, and for good reason. We've had record high inflation. We have seen all sorts of new rules and regulations that have been enacted, which are starting to have a negative impact on economic growth. Even today, that the actual most recent number for GDP came in below expectations. You're seeing increases in commodity prices. We have wars that are going on right now between Russia and Ukraine, and between Gaza and Israel, and now Israel and Iran, and we have issues going on where North Korea is sending troops in to help the Russians in Ukraine, and we have the Chinese potentially going to attack, who knows, Taiwan or whatever. I mean, we have all these things that are going on the world stage. So a lot of people do not like Joe Biden. They don't consider him to be a good leader, and so he probably doesn't like them very well either. And he's probably just voicing his real opinion. This probably is exactly how he feels. He probably really does believe that holistically. Now, on an individual level, different, but at least on a holistic level, a generalized level, he does probably believe that Trump supporters are indeed garbage. Now, Hillary Clinton, again, similar thing, 2016, basically called Trump supporters deplorables, or at least half of them deplorables. And she went on to elaborate that. And if you'll recall, in that year, there were surrogates for her who came forward. There were apologists, basically, who came forward and said, oh, no, she really didn't mean that. Well, okay. But here's the rest of the clip. And this is just the continuation. You'll hear all the applause. Clapping and laughing.
The racist, sexist, homophobic, xenophobic, Islamophobic, you name it.
And yet, again, that year, her surrogates came out and said, oh, no, that's not really what she meant. Her apologists came out, no, that's not really what she meant. Of course, everyone was saying she's really not calling all the Trump supporters deplorables, and no, it's just a small fraction of them. Basically, coming up with all sorts of different excuses and justifications for it. So, again, I didn't in 2016. I'm like, hey, whatever she wants to call me is fine. It doesn't really matter to me. We had, again, some great years under Trump's leadership. Would love to see that continue. At this point, who knows? The election's very tight, at least going into the polls anyways for the election day. A lot of people have already voted. There's been in excess of 50 million votes cast already, and we haven't even got to election day yet. Some good numbers coming out of some areas. We've broken some of those down earlier. Some bad polls have come out too. So there's been a mix of news essentially in the news cycle today. But this by far I think is the one that has garnered the most attention. And really, I mean, it's good that you have something like this that can actually showcase exactly how Democrats feel about Republicans. And this is not a surprise. We've known for years how they feel about Republicans. So that's not really a surprise in that regard. But really and truthfully, I would love to see the issues. You know what I'm saying? I would love to see the issues be the main thing that we're debating, that we're talking about, and not these. I don't want to call them gaffes, because I don't think this was actually just something where he really did just kind of misspoke or create a little bit of a word salad, or some of the other things, crazy things that he's done, pretending to just shake hands with the air, all sorts of things like that. No, I really do think this is actually truly how he does feel. Now, part of it I think is due to cognitive decline. I really believe that. Don't think his brain-mouth filter is working very well. There's some people whose brain-mouth filters don't work anyways, but it certainly has degraded over the last 4 years, so I think it's truthful at this point. This is how he feels. But, as always, you tell me what you think. Do you think that he truly believes that Trump supporters are garbage? Does it matter to you that he thinks that Trump supporters are garbage? Does it sway your opinion, your vote in any particular way? Yes or no? Put that down below. Give us your feedback, your comments. We'd love to interact with you in the comment section below. As always, thanks. Please share, subscribe. We will catch you next time.